He's lying. Well, I can tell you now, one MP that reiterated that suspicion was Reform UK's Lee Anderson. Take a look at what he had to say.
Watch how tensions explode in the Commons as Lee Anderson and Zara Sultana are dramatically thrown out after directly confronting Keir Starmer in one of the most chaotic debates yet. Accusations fly, tempers boil over, and the Speaker is forced to step in as the chamber descends into outrage. This isn't just politics, it's raw emotion, frustration, and a nation demanding answers. When trust breaks down at the very top, moments like this hit differently. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Britain Daily. It's completely free and it helps us keep bringing you the hard-hitting stories that matter. Let's watch this explosive clip.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The problem the Prime Minister's got is no one believes him. The public don't believe him. The MPs on this side of the House don't believe him. His own gullible backbenchers don't believe him. So does the Prime Minister agree with me? He's been lying.
Prime Minister, sorry, we don't use those words, and I'm sure the members withdrawn it.
Mr. Speaker, I have the greatest respect for you and your office, but I will not withdraw. That man couldn't lie straight in bed.
Order. Mr. Anderson, you'll have to leave. Zara Sultana.
Speaker, in September the Prime Minister stood at this dispatch box and told the House he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson, a man whose relationship with convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein was public knowledge. The Prime Minister knew and backed him anyway. Now he claims he had no idea that this twice-fired government minister had failed MI6 vetting, despite journalists putting that directly to Downing Street that very same month. Mr. Speaker, we all know that the Prime Minister appointed Mandelson because he owes his job to him. He appointed him, he defended him, and now he claims to know nothing. He is gaslighting the nation. So let's call this out for what it is. The Prime Minister is a barefaced liar, and if he had any decency left...
No, order. Sit and leave. Leave now. I'll name you otherwise and go now if I were you. Leave. I'm not... Leave. I've no name. I've given the option to leave. I'd leave if I were you very quickly. Move before I read it and give me one option. Right, give me that. You have no duties. It's my duty to carry out and control this House. One chance. Do you want to leave now or not? Right. I name Zara Sultana. Minister, I beg to move that the said member, be suspended from the House.
Mr. Speaker, call Jane Kitchen.
Jane Kitchener.
I beg to move that Zara Sultana be suspended from the service of the House.
The question is that Zara Sultana be named and leave this House. All those in favour? Aye. Leave. I'm sorry you've done this. I really am. Right. Come on, Rebecca Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 7 months ago, 7 months ago, a national newspaper ran the story that Mandelson had failed security vetting. So how is it even possible that no one in number 10 knew until last week?
Prime Minister.
A number of inquiries were made, questions were asked of FCDO, and the answer they gave was the same. They did not disclose to me or anyone in number 10 that UK SV had recommended against clearance.
Phil Brettle.
Speaker, when Sir Ollie Robbins came before the Foreign Affairs Committee on the 3rd of November last year, he was asked by my honourable friend, the member for Liverpool Walton, whether, in the context of vetting, Lord Mandelson's appointment was escalated. Citing a need to maintain the integrity of the vetting system, Sir Ollie replied, and I quote, "I certainly cannot comment on that, I'm afraid." Does the Prime Minister not find it perverse that when specifically asked by members of this Parliament about Mandelson's vetting, Sir Ollie declined to discuss the very topic we are now debating in this House?
Prime Minister.
Well, I've read that evidence, and it remains my strong view that the recommendation of UK SV could and should have been shared with me, and could and should have been shared with the Foreign Secretary, and thus with the Select Committee, and it should have been.
Andrew Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further to the question raised by my right honourable friend, the member for Hartsware, Mr. Speaker, Is it not pretty poor form that the Prime Minister shovels the blame for this, particularly onto Ollie Robbins, a fine and experienced civil servant who was appointed 2 days after the Prime Minister's Mandelson announcement? Surely, Mr. Speaker, the buck stops at the top.
Prime Minister. Can I say again, Sir Ollie Robbins has had a distinguished career, and I've worked with him over a number of years. Nonetheless, he could and should have shared this crucially relevant information with me before Peter Mandelson took up his post, and he should have done at various points after that. And it was because of that that I lost confidence in him. That doesn't mean he hasn't got a distinguished career. He does have a distinguished career.
Sir David, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's 2022 all over again. Back then, when he stood on this side of the House, it was Boris Johnson who was accused of misleading Parliament and scapegoating senior officials. The then Leader of the Opposition couldn't have been clearer. The public need to know, he said, that not all politicians are the same, that not all politicians put themselves above their country, and that honesty, integrity and accountability matter. So he promised change, Mr. Speaker. He promised to break the cycle and stop the chaos. And he promised a government with, and I quote, more focus on long-term strategy, not the short-term distractions that can animate Westminster. I'm afraid the fact that he even had to make the statement today shows how badly he has failed. How badly he has let down the millions of people across our country who are so desperate for change. He blames his officials. He says he had no idea. He gives every impression of a Prime Minister in office, but not in power. The facts remain, even on his own account. The Prime Minister appointed Peter Mandelson as Ambassador to the United States even after he had been warned about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. The Prime Minister announced the appointment before Mandelson had been vetted, despite the clear risk to national security of putting someone unsuitable in that role. And one of his top officials, just 3 weeks into the job, clearly believed the Prime Minister wanted Mandelson to be appointed regardless of what the vetting process turned up. And the Prime Minister has relied on the vetting process to defend his decisions. So why did he ask so few questions personally about the vetting process itself? We all know the truth, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister knew that appointing Mandelson was an enormous risk. He decided it was a risk worth taking, a catastrophic error of judgment. And now that it's blown up in his face, the only decent thing to do is to take responsibility. Back in 2022, the Prime Minister rightly accused Boris Johnson of expecting others to take the blame while he clung on. That was not acceptable then, and it's not acceptable now. So I hope the Prime Minister can at least tell the House this, and we'll be listening very carefully to his answer. Was he given advice by Simon Case, the then Cabinet Secretary, that the necessary security clearances should be acquired before he confirmed his choice for US Ambassador? And did he follow that advice? Yes or no? Mr. Speaker, after the years of chaos under the Conservatives, we needed a government focused on the interests of the people, the cost of living crisis, the health and care crisis, our national security. We needed a government of honesty, integrity and accountability. So will the Prime Minister finally accept that the only way he can help to deliver that is to resign?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I set out in my statement the full facts. And in September, when the Bloomberg emails came to light, I asked the Cabinet to review the process, then Cabinet Secretary to review the process. He told me the process was as it should have been. And as soon as the information about security vetting came to light last Tuesday, I asked for the facts to be established so I could update Parliament. He asks me about the announcement before developed vetting. He's heard the evidence that I've given to the House from the former Cabinet Secretary and from the former Permanent Secretary. In relation to the advice from Simon Case, Mr. Speaker, when I asked the former Cabinet Secretary to review the process after September 25, he specifically addressed whether the process had been followed by referencing the Simon Case letter and assured me that the process was the right process to have followed. So that... So in answer to his question, that was specifically looked at by Sir Chris Warmold in the review that was conducted in September of last year.
Dame Diane Abbott. Sorry, Diane Abbott.
The Prime Minister has gone on at considerable length about process and procedure. But ordinary people don't really care about process and procedure. They want transparency, and they want to know that they can have confidence in the words of elected politicians, like all of us in this chamber. On the question of Peter Mandelson, it was in the 90s that Peter Mandelson had to resign from the cabinet for the first time because of his dealings with the millionaire Geoffrey Robinson. It was a few years later he had to resign from the cabinet for the second time because of his relationships with the billionaire Hinduja family. Peter Mandelson has a history. Peter Mandelson has a history, and what this House wants to know is why, knowing Peter Mandelson's history, going back now 30 years, and given what has been known, it's one thing to say, as he insists on saying, nobody told me. Nobody told me anything. Nobody told me. The question is, why didn't the Prime Minister ask?
Mr. Speaker, in relation to her question, let me be clear. I should not have appointed Peter Mandelson. As soon as the further revelations came to light, I asked the Cabinet Secretary to review the process so I could be assured about the process. He wrote to me on the 16th of September, setting out the conclusions of that review and assuring me the process had been followed properly.
Simon Hoycher of Packer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has spoken about process and the reviews and trying to put that which went wrong right. That is to be supported. But he's also asking the House and the country to believe that, notwithstanding a front-page media splash that Peter Mandelson had failed the vetting process, that there was nobody in Number 10 or in any government department that even thought to say, is there any truth in this? Could I have a briefing on that? We need to knock this story down. If nobody asked, that is the shameful thing. And if nobody asked, does it not say to the Prime Minister that the operation of his government, which seems to be process, strategy, review, never my fault, is not sustainable and is not welcomed by the country at large?
In answer to his question, the FCDA was repeatedly asked in light of inquiries. The same answer came back because a clear decision had been taken that this information was not going to be disclosed. And it wasn't disclosed to me, let alone to anybody else. So yes, repeatedly the FCDA was asked, the same answer came back as the answer that was given to me. The decision was that I wasn't to know and nobody else was to know. That was wrong.
What you've just seen is more than a heated argument. It's a clear sign of how deeply tensions are running in British politics right now. When Lee Anderson and Zara Sultana refused to back down, even at the cost of being thrown out, it reflected something bigger than just a breach of parliamentary language. It showed raw frustration that many people across the country are feeling every single day. And at the centre of it all is Keir Starmer, facing growing pressure, tough questions, and accusations that simply won't go away. For ordinary people watching this unfold, it raises a serious question. Who do you trust when those in power are constantly under fire? Because this isn't just about political point scoring anymore. It's about credibility, honesty, and leadership at a time when the country needs stability the most. Moments like this don't just fade, they build. They shape public opinion, and they can change the course of politics entirely. If you want to stay informed and see the full picture behind these explosive moments, make sure you're part of this conversation. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Britain Daily.